So I want to talk about something that's going to change the game. It's going to change the landscape of pro wrestling. And it's going to do it in such a big way because people don't understand that business is business. Now, you're probably listening to all of this news about All Elite Wrestling. And obviously, Kenny Omega was a very big part of the success from being the Elite. I think he had a lot to do with the Young Bucks and Cody becoming a big deal outside of WWE and outside of ROH and outside of these companies. I think he helped them create their brand. I think they're all part of that. I think when you look at what they did as Bullet Club and what they did as the Elite, and I mean, look, they're all to be credited for their success. But Kenny Omega was a huge star in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's such a big star in New Japan Pro Wrestling that he is probably the only guy that can fill the void of Roman Reigns right now in WWE. And it's not because Seth Rollins isn't good enough. It's not because AJ Styles or Daniel Bryan aren't good enough. But we've seen these guys on our television show weekly for years now. And what's kind of happened with WWE is a lot of talent has come up and it's become oversaturated. And this is the problem that WWE has. So you guys could sit there and cry about it. You guys could dislike this video and say, no, that's not true. But realistically, we've become so accustomed to seeing certain guys on our television so often that it's almost ruined the specialty of certain superstars. Seth Rollins is a good example. I think Seth Rollins at one point could have been the guy. Still to this day, I think he could be as well. But if you see Seth Rollins so much on your TV, wins, loses, gets screwed over, whatever it may be, I feel like it takes the special attraction out of Seth Rollins. This is why people, you guys can hate on Brock Lesnar all you want. Yeah, he's holding the title, but for the most part, when you see a guy like Brock Lesnar show up every once in a while, there's a special feeling around that. Now, it might be a little exaggerated, but there's a lot of guys on the WWE roster who I can envision being the top guy in WWE. They can all take the place of Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns was a very, very special superstar, but I think when you look deep down on their roster, I think there's a lot of guys who can fill that void. The problem goes back to what I originally said. You've seen these guys before. It's nothing new. They just might be positioned or booked differently. Wrestling fans forget about the past, but when you really watch wrestling and you see a guy like Heath Slater lose so many matches, if he wins the WWE Championship belt tomorrow, it means nothing. That's why you guys hated the Jinder Mahal project. I said kudos to WWE because they gave people something different, but this is why people were reluctant to that change. Now, to compare Jinder Mahal to Seth Rollins, obviously there is a huge difference between the two, but it doesn't change the fact that Jinder Mahal became a top guy and won the championship belt. So today's news that came out is that Kenny Omega would be expected to sign a major contract with WWE and that Vince McMahon is willing to make a big contract offer to Kenny Omega. Now, if you guys don't watch WWE, Kenny Omega is the biggest star outside of WWE. He's incredibly big. He's so big that for years, people have expected Kenny Omega to sign with WWE, and it hasn't happened. It's almost been like one of those things. What if Kenny Omega never signs with WWE? It's almost like the Sting situation. But when you look at WWE and you see what they do with Up, Up, Down, Down, and they've obviously collaborated with Kenny Omega before, when you see some of these things and you realize that WWE has potential with Kenny Omega, it's not just Kenny Omega being a wrestler. It's about Kenny Omega becoming the top guy in WWE. Hence why it may make more sense for Vince McMahon to throw a huge contract offer. Now, according to multiple reports, it's expected that Vince McMahon is going to throw multi-million dollars to Kenny Omega. His contract supposedly ends sometime in January, whatever it may be. I don't know. I'm not a wrestling journalist. I'm a fan. I like to talk about wrestling. But the news that's coming out is that he would be expected to consider signing with WWE. He had his opportunities years ago. People actually don't know that. People didn't know that he's had chances with WWE prior. But that's before Kenny Omega became a big star. And now people are talking about All Elite Wrestling. Whatever it may be, there's options out there. See, what intrigues me about Kenny Omega specifically going to WWE is because it's something new, something fresh, something that we didn't expect to see. A guy coming in from the outside, becoming the top guy in the WWE is probably something a lot of people wouldn't expect because WWE likes their homegrown talent. WWE's had a hard time in the past bringing Impact Wrestling guys or ROH guys into WWE. They may have brought them in, but they kind of shielded them from being at the top spot. AJ Styles is, in fact, the exclusion there. In my opinion, I look at this image right here, and it's a Photoshop concept. And the one thing I realize is that Bullet Club probably is never coming to WWE. But with the history between Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Kenny Omega, I think WWE has enough money and resources to recreate and definitely recycle that storyline. But I think they could do a better job than New Japan. So I get excited about Kenny Omega coming to WWE because, not because it's Kenny Omega, but it's something fresh. It's something new. It's something that's going to shake up the show. Raw's viewership is low, guys. It's low. They desperately need to figure something out. As much as I want Seth Rollins to be the guy, as much as I want Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, as much as I want these guys to be the one, as much as I look at a guy like Baron Corbin, I say, yeah, he's talented and he's great. He can't be the face of WWE. Now, let's play fantasy booking for a little bit. Let's say Vince McMahon does make that decision. Let's say he signs Kenny Omega. How would you debut Kenny Omega on WWE television? I'm going to be very optimistic here, and I'm going to hope for the best here. I'm going to hope that Kenny Omega comes out of nowhere and fights Seth Rollins. But there's a reason why I like the idea of Kenny Omega and Seth Rollins. There's a lot of talk about Seth Rollins being the guy now that Roman Reigns is out. Seth Rollins was positioned as the babyface on Raw. Probably their number one babyface on Raw. Kenny Omega coming in as a heel is what WWE needs to shake things up. Just like The Shield, right? Roman Reigns wasn't a babyface. Roman Reigns, it didn't matter if Roman Reigns was booed or cheered because he was still the guy. And that's what WWE needs here. Seth Rollins versus Kenny Omega would be exciting. Not only is it going to be a fantastic match, but people will be shocked to see Kenny Omega randomly have a match with Seth Rollins. Now, this is where the fantasy booking gets really crazy because we're going to take a turn for the very best. OGBC. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson make their way to support Kenny Omega. What about Finn Balor? People have a hard time seeing him win the Universal Championship again. You don't need to be a World Championship holder in WWE. Kenny Omega could hold the Universal title. OGBC Tag Team Champions. Finn Balor holding an Intercontinental belt. That's the beauty of this. An all-heel faction. People want to see Finn Balor eventually become the guy. Finn Balor and Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson turning on Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega becoming the babyface for WWE. Kenny Omega fighting Finn Balor. Universal Championship belt on the line. Intercontinental Championship belt on the line. Who knows? Maybe the fantasy booking is just simply a fantasy. But if you want to get that viewership going, you don't wait for a pay-per-view like Royal Rumble. Kenny Omega is not meant to debut in a Royal Rumble, only for him to not win the Royal Rumble. People want to see Bullet Club in WWE. It's just not going to happen. This is what intrigues me. I think WWE has some really serious potential here. And if WWE does in fact offer this major contract, and if Kenny Omega does sign with WWE, as reported, this is a game changer. I want to know what you guys think, but most importantly, I want to give you guys a quick shout out to what is coming to the channel on January 6th. We're going to be doing a homecoming live post show. So January 6th, immediately after Impact Wrestling, we're going to buy the pay-per-view. We're going to watch it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go over the show, full highlights live on the channel. We're bringing back the live streams on the channel. So if you guys are here, you guys want to support the show, make sure you guys check it out. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, guys, my name is Tony from Destination Pro Wrestling, at Tango with Tango on Twitter. Links down below. I will see you guys soon.